The people who are in the live chat early and watching right before it comes on are just going to be so surprised because they're going to get like 2 minutes of free content here, Bill.
They're getting it right now as you speak, RFM.
We're talking about Aaron Sherinian and his rapidly becoming infamous appearance at Fair Mormon. So Sunstone had a conference a week ago, last weekend, and Fair, the Apologist Fellows, had their conference this weekend. In fact, I think it just concluded today on the 8th. By the way, it is August 8th. It is the day on which I believe that Brigham Young looked like Joseph Smith and sounded like Joseph Smith to the point that people didn't write about it at the time, but a lot of them sure remembered it long after the fact. So that probably happened. That's the transformation that happened. This is Transformation Day. So happy Transformation to you, Bill, not to be confused with Reformation Day.
I just want to note that was such a big miracle that the people who experienced it first weren't even there. That's how miraculous the transfiguration.
Well, you know it's a big miracle if you see it when you're not even in town. And you're not even going to arrive till the next day. That's how you know it's a real miracle. But back to Aaron Sherinian. Yeah, so they had him come on. He was like the keynote speaker. I believe this was 2 nights ago on the 6th, so Wednesday night. But the very opening night, the kickoff for Fair, they bring in Aaron Sherinian. And of course, they do this because he is a representative of the church. They've had lower level GAs come and address them before. It is the divine sanction. It is the blessing. It is the benediction that they receive from the church that they crave so much. So now they get Aaron in there. And Aaron, I guess, for those who don't know, I think most in the audience know. If not, we'll have Rebecca come on and tell you about it. He was hired as the head of the communications department for the church, I believe it was, a year and a half ago. It was January of 2024 or so. And then a huge hubbub erupted because apparently he had a history of doing horrible things like standing up for LGBTQ people. And these things were like on his Facebook page. It was just, what anybody could access and what you might do before you hired someone if this was overlooked. But he was hired. And then a lot of people were thinking, is this signal a shift by the church? Because obviously the church would have to know this. It's on his Facebook page. How could they not know this when they're hiring a guy of this importance?
We sure as hell know they're not doing it on inspiration in Revelation. So however that call's coming, there's got to be some research done.
It would actually be a sign of a lack of faith to scour a person's Facebook page or do any research.
Yeah.
And actually, that's funny, but I think there's a lot of truth in that.
Mm-hmm.
That is the church's position. It would be a lack of faith to do any background checks on somebody or even look at their Facebook page. It's just all got to be inspiration. And that's how you know you're getting the right person for the job. Well, anyway, a lot of people are thinking, does this signal a shift by the church and hiring a person like this with this background? And this is maybe a step in a positive direction for the church. And then Aaron Sherinian dropped off the face of the earth. And he didn't do anything. Whenever there was a statement being made by the church through a spokesperson, it wasn't Aaron. And
show up anywhere.
Rebecca Biblioteca, she covered this lack of coverage or lack of appearance. And she even had, I don't think I made a slide of it, but it was very funny. It's like, where's Waldo? But it's where's Aaron Sherinian? Because nobody's seen this guy and he's the head of the communications department. And then there was some photo a few months ago where he was at some meeting apparently, and he wasn't at the center of the photo. He's kind of off over here. It's like, when you're taking pictures at the picnic and then later on you get home and you develop the photos and you see there's a Bigfoot over here in the background peeking out from behind a rock. It was that kind of picture with Aaron Sherinian. So anyway, that's about it. And then they let him out. They figure he's going to the Fair conference. It could not be more faithful. It could not be a safer space for us to let Aaron go out and say whatever it is he's going to say. And he gets asked some questions and he causes a furor. It's a firestorm kind of furor, not a German kind of furor.
Yeah. Allowing, first off, when you're Fair Mormon and you have Aaron Sherinian on, it's to send a message. In the message.
Did you say when you're Ward Mormon?
No, I said when you're Fair Mormon.
Fair Mormon, sorry.
And you have Aaron Sherinian as your featured speaker at your conference, at your annual conference. You're sending a message. You're sending a message to the folks on the outside who have tried to draw these connections between him and his allyship and support of the LGBT community versus his support of Mormonism. And by having him, there's some degree of confidence they have that he is going to choose the church, no matter what, over the internal questions that he's obviously wrestled with, to be an ally of the LGBT community and to be vocal about it.
Well, he almost kind of has to, since that's, his paycheck, and you'd think he would know that going in. I mean, you'd have to be kind of blind not to know that's the situation going into being the head of the communications department for the LDS Church. So it was all very, very a big question. And by the way, I want to stress that it wasn't just people saying, oh, well, maybe this is shifting in the positive direction. There were also other conservative voices within the church, like Greg Mattson over at his little Quick channel. And he was, at Jacob Hansen, his boy wonder. They were going crazy because what is the church doing? You see, they see the same thing, but from their point of view, of course, it's in a negative direction. And so now, one of the things that you probably heard of, and which we have the tape of, because it was streamed live from Fair Mormon. It was the only session that was live streamed, and therefore we captured it, and we're totally within our rights of playing whatever part of it we want. Says the attorney who's never done this and came this close to failing the subject in law school. But I think that's correct. Anyway, that's my story, and I'm sticking with it. So we've got that tape. And the question, there are several questions, but the main question everybody's talking about is a question to him as to whether he supported the family proclamation or believed that was true. Because, of course, there's that part in there about gender and everything that it would seem like Aaron Sherinian is probably against. So this was a great question. It was really badly delivered when I went back and saw it, because it wasn't just that question. It was a bundle of questions. It was totally objectionable if it had been asked in court. And it allowed Aaron to talk about other things, I think, although he has a very long, protracted, and convoluted answer. And in the middle of that answer, it seems that for a moment, he is going back and answering the question about his support of the family proclamation. He doesn't say that, though. It seems that way. And astonishingly, he doesn't just say, what he says is he supports the brethren. Of course he does. And unfortunately, I think he says, it's my job to support the brethren, which does not instill confidence in people looking for faith in those positions, I would think. So we'll see how that sounds. Anyway, we've got a lot of things to talk about, and I'm looking forward to getting to it.
Excellent. Do you want, I can put that first video up now, or we can go in whatever direction you want to, but I've got that one queued, and this would be clip number 3.
Yeah, you want to just bring Pearl on for a second?
Yep. There you go. Pearl, how are you?
Gentlemen, how are you?
Hi, Pearl.
Oh, it's been a hot minute. Hope you guys are doing well.
I think I'm starting to finally feel better.
Good.
After whatever it was that I caught down there in Salt Lake City, came down with, I don't know. But it was like Saturday night during our first show, our first appearance, Bill. And I just started going downhill. And then it was all the next day when I was supposed to be spending, that was a Sunday, supposed to be spending time with the family, and into the next day. And then it was miserable on the newscast, but I soldiered through like a true professional, I hope. Yeah, and then the next day I had to come back, and I'm hoping getting back to a reasonable altitude,
right,
and climate and temperature and humidity, that I'll be back home and I'll be like, the fish when you put it back in the water and it goes, and it swims off real fast.
Yes.
Well, I went, and then I'm slowly starting to swim. And I think I'm starting to pick up speed as of today. Anyway, that was probably more of an answer than you wanted when you said, how are you?
That's good. Well, I'm glad you're feeling better. So I'm between semesters at the moment of school. So I've been away from everything because I've been busy with school. But I wanted to play show and tell tonight. So are you ready?
Okay, just remember this is a family show, Pearl.
Of course.
Older kids, but yes, family show.
No, those days are behind me. I don't do that.
Maybe are, but it's not NC-17.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so my class I was taking one of the last times I talked to you was my addictions and substance class. Okay, so it goes through the span of alcohol, pot, hard drugs, hypnotics, everything. We learned about it all. Okay, so this is the book. I'm not sure if you can see it.
Drugs across the spectrum. Sorry.
Spectrum. Okay.
Bill is ensuring our rating.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bill.
Sorry, kids. So anyway, so on the chapter on alcohol, it's culture. Okay. So it's page 146. Okay. Second
I feel like I'm
paragraph.
watching a Carrie Shirts production.
Yeah, I know, right? So second paragraph.
I'm sorry, Carrie. And he came to my presentation at Sunstone. Thank you, Carrie. I love you.
Okay. It says religious groups such as the Muslims and Mormons advocate abstinence.
What do they advocate again?
Abstinence? I can't say
That's
that
what I
word.
thought you said.
Yeah, that one.
Abstinence.
Abstinence. Thank you. The greater one's religion commitment, the less likely one is to drink heavily, and the more likely one will abstain.
Yeah, because without religion, the only way to get through this life is drugs and alcohol.
Right. So that is the first time I've ever seen a book actually get into a specific religion.
That was
and
nice.
It happens to be the Mormons.
A good old word of wisdom.
Of course, word of wisdom, right?
Is it
but
the
anyway,
word of the law of chastity?
It's a little bit of both.
well, yeah, I know. But anyway,
one leads to the other. We know.
Yeah, well, of course, one leads to the other. You know, you got to drink if you're a Mormon. Jesus, you know.
Mormonism drove me to drink, actually.
Well, I would tend to think so. Anyway.
Well, it had some help from my second wife.
Well, my second husband, I relapsed with my second husband, so I'm right there with you.
All right.
I understand the feeling.
It's nice not to be alone.
No, that's true. But anyway, I just wanted to play show and tell and say my college book brought up the Mormons.
I love it.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Pearl.
You're welcome. You guys have a good night.
Take it easy.
Oh, you too. Bye.
Good night. Have a good weekend. Wow.
All right.
You have to pay so much for those college books. I can't imagine how much they are today. They were astronomical. And back in the 80s, it was like crazy. And then law school, don't even get me started. I did not buy a new book unless I absolutely had to. I got the worst, most used books I possibly could.
You mentioned the law of chastity. I think a little bit of sex only hurt a few people. Isn't that mostly true?
This is one of those statements that I don't know what you're talking about, but I don't want to ask.
All right. Well, that's okay. Let's bring Sloan on and see what Sloan has to think about it.
Sloan Smart, Agent 86.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Yes, sir. I missed it by that much, right? Get smart.
Very good. Yes.
Right.
Can I do my favorite line from Get Smart of all time?
I haven't been. Oh, 100%.
Thank you. Okay. Here it is.
100%.
The old false fingertips on the fire escape trick. That's the second time I've fallen for it this month. You remember that one, Bill?
Wonderful.
Oh, I was such a little kid. The only thing that I was paying attention to was that he would take his shoe off and it was his telephone.
Yes.
When you're a kid, you only pick up on so much. When I went back and watched Family Ties as a 35-year-old man, I realized there were so many sexual innuendos that were made for my parents to hear, but not for my pretty little ears.
That's interesting. Sounds like milk before meat.
I had the same feeling. I was going to say I had the same feeling watching Top Secret with Val Kilmer as an adult after having watched it all the time as a child. So many innuendos that I was unaware of as a child. So,
wonderful. So Sloan, what brings you to our humble lounge?
So I was actually calling because this week I interacted with Jacob Hansen, right?
In a platonic way, I hope.
Twitter, so as platonic as it can get, I assume. But he basically was said John Dehlin was a liar because there was no evidence of Joseph Smith being convicted in 1826. And so then I looked in the Joseph Smith papers, and there was like 60 years later in 1886, like a reprint of the like court docket with all the testimonies and everything. And then they found in 1971 the actual like bill for $2.18 or whatever.
I think it was Wesley Walters.
Made it seem, yes, exactly. And basically that the, what was it? It was more than likely based on an accurate document. To me, was reading through that document, there was a portion where it had a trick to trick people. And this goes back to your magic show that you did. But essentially, where he would say, hey, a book, pick a page from any book. And then he'd put his head in his hat and he would recite the book page from that. That was one of the testimonies in that 1886 document. And I was like, wait, if he could do that, if that was his trick, all the Book of Mormon, him reciting from the hat, his face in the hat and the rock of the hat, made a whole lot more sense if that's accurate. And so I just wanted to hear y'all's thoughts on that.
What do you think, Bill?
So I missed a bunch of that. There were lots of long moments where your sound went out, and I couldn't make out.
I was hoping it hadn't gone out for you. It was just me.
No, it did. But I caught a little bit of it. You know, you've got the two different trials. Now, you seem to be inferring that in the 1826 with Josiah Stoll, in the one trial with him being found guilty of being a glass looker, right? And he has to pay the fine.
Disorderly person, right?
The $2.18, as you point out, RFM, discovered by Wesley Walters. But the other one is the other trial, I think, that Josiah Stoll is involved in, and it's the testimony of the various people in that case. Those two are separate. And I don't know what more to say about them, but I definitely think it serves the point that you're arguing for.
Here, even if it's not exactly in response to your question, the one thing I really want to say about this as an attorney practicing for 35 years, I went to a pretty good law school. I read a couple of books, if you know what I mean. The thing about this trial of Joseph Smith that interests me the least is whether he was found guilty.
Mm-hmm.
Because I see miscarriages of justice on a regular basis. And I almost said something that would have been unnecessarily derogatory, but jurors come to conclusions based upon the most unusual reasons. Okay. So all I'm saying is that I don't really care if he was found guilty or not. What I care about is the fact that he's brought to trial and that this is a place where testimony is taken and recorded. So what I know from it is that, yeah, he was a practicing treasure digger because it was admitted. And not only that, but Josiah Stoll, his employer, the guy who's supposed to be the victim in this lawsuit, comes in and testifies on behalf of Joseph Smith and says that even though Joseph Smith dug for him and he wanted to find the silver mine, and I believe there were at least three different digs trying to find this for Josiah Stoll alone, that in spite of all that, Joseph Smith never found any treasure. And yet Josiah Stoll swears on a stack of Bibles that Joseph Smith has the gift to find treasure in the earth through a stone. Because that came to me really hard a few weeks ago, which is, this is an essential aspect of Joseph Smith's character that I think is necessary to understand him, is that even as a teenager and early 20-year-old, he had the power to make people believe in him so much in the absence of evidence. Not just the absence of evidence, but having places where you're going to prove it and it fails, right? How can you get people to believe in you in spite of nothing but failure, and then believe it in you so much that they'll take your part when you're being charged with ripping them off? That's the kind of person Joseph Smith was.
To play RFM on the legal system, eyewitnesses in a government court of law is held at the highest esteem. That is one of the top forms of evidence you can have is eyewitness testimony.
Well, eyewitness it is a much debated thing. If I say I saw you, okay, at a place in a time, like, a week ago, then people are probably going to believe me. If under cross-examination, it ends up being in a town that you were not in at the time, and it was across the street, and it was at night, and you were walking away from me. You see, this is the kind of eyewitness, the details that make eyewitness testimony either very good, because if I've known you for a long time, Bill, and if the testimony is different and you're sitting across the desk from me, or we're sitting at the same table at Sunstone and presenting together, whatever it is, having these presentations, yeah, that's pretty darn strong evidence that I'm going to be recognizing. On the other hand, there are all other factors that can make eyewitness testimony wrong and convict otherwise innocent people.
Absolutely. So you can absolutely have eyewitness testimony be incorrect. But there are certain situations where eyewitness testimony is it's the thing that seals the deal. And in science says that eyewitness testimony is the least reliable of all the testimonies. People misremember things about all the things that they're sure about.
Except for me, Bill.
Well, I
remember everything 100% accurately.
Close. So Joseph Smith, his job is to simply convince the people around him that the magic is real. That's what an eyewitness does. An eyewitness says that the magic trick was actually magic. You can't trust the testimony of people who have been fooled
by the trick,
by the magic trick.
I got to tell you, Wendy, we just had gotten to Salt Lake. It was whenever it was, Tuesday, and we're sitting across the table at each other in a restaurant. It was something they have down there that they don't have up here. It's a Cracker Barrel. And conversation lagged, and I just thought, well, why don't I try this old trick that I never did as a kid? But you learned about things that you don't use because you think nobody's going to ever fall for that, right? Because it's so obvious. And at this point, I thought, if she won't fall for it, but it'll be fun anyway. It'll fill the time. Okay, I think Sloan is disappearing on me now. He's trying to one-up me in the magic department. There he is. He's back. So anyway, I hold up I take the fork and hit it on the table, showing it solid, of course, as if it wouldn't be. And then I hold it up in front of her, and it disappears in front of her eyes. And she is astonished. And I'm astonished that she's astonished, because apparently I did that trick pretty damn well. Of course, it helps that she doesn't know what's coming, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, the stars aligned, and I did a minor miracle at the Cracker Barrel.
It's magic.
And yes, and I heard her. I had the as a magician, it has been my experience that a magician's best moments are when they hear somebody who saw a trick they performed describe it to somebody else who wasn't there.
Yeah.
It is a fascinating.
Vanished.
Yes. And this is what I did. And this is why I actually had Wendy come up to describe that trick in the presentation that I and Randall Bell did on Saturday morning at Sunstone. Yeah. Was because I knew that this is how she had already described it, I think, to Randy. And so she comes up there and describes it. And I just thought, if I could do that, I would really be a magician.
I love it.
What do you think? I'm not sure how much of it cut out.
Well, I just want to say that the witness testimony of Joseph Smith and the three witnesses and everything, as wonderful as it is, as compelling as it is, as problematic as it is in all its iterations, it's still people who were fooled by the trick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so what I was saying, and I'm not sure how much of it cut out, and I was wondering if I turned off my camera, if you could hear me.
Oh, I got you. You can try that.
Go through. Okay, so let me try that. So I'm turning off my camera, but essentially in that actual reprint of the trial documents from 1886. So 1826, 60 years later, there was an evangelical group that reprinted the transcript of what happened in the 1826 trial. There was a witness that said
Sloan.
Joseph Smith, how he got people. Yep.
Yeah, it cut you out again. So you're saying there's a record from 1886, 50 years later, that has, 60 years later, whatever it is, 50 years later, and it's got the court records were published in the newspaper. See, I don't know that I've ever seen this or heard of this. I know the sort of a rough testimonies, like a newspaper reporting on what was said, but not the literal court records.
Yeah, it's a newspaper printing from an evangelical group trying to basically show that Joseph Smith was a fraud in 1826. He was convicted of the glass looking, is essentially what it was. But in that, he kind of reveals the trick. So one of the testimonies says that he essentially would have somebody look at a book, pick a page from the said book that he gave them, and then from that book, he would recite the page to them, meaning he had a great memory. I think that was the trick. And it made me actually think, that he made the Book of Mormon, if that makes sense.
Yeah, one explains the other.
Dan Vogel, our resident expert, and we're so damn thankful that he watches the show. He says it's the transcript of the trial from Albert Neely's docket book brought to Utah by his niece.
Yes.
I say that's pretty good.
That's pretty
good.
It is most likely based on an authentic document. Yes.
Well, look, if you're suggesting that the answer from a document 50 years later is that Joseph Smith had the entire photographic memory, is that what you're suggesting?
Had ability to memorize, like you do with Shakespeare, had the ability to memorize.
Here's the thing.
Sections of books.
I don't believe it. Okay. I don't believe he had that ability.
Okay.
But then again, am I judging it because I don't have that ability and it seems extraordinary to me? And maybe he did. I don't know. I can't say for sure. I just say on the basis of anything that I know, I don't think he had that ability. You come up here with something 50 years later, an evangelical publication that's never been stated before regarding testimony at this trial from 1826 or 1830. And now it adds something new, which is obviously supposed to show how it was that Joseph Smith did the trick, right? To all the evangelical people, so they won't have anything to do with Mormonism. And I think this one is very suspicious to me personally. Okay. And also, I want to add this. As we approach our 30-minute mark of tonight's show, and I hope we get to some Aaron Sherinian too. But I love this talking with you, Sloan. This discussion, damn it, is I do not have a good memory. And that's the thing, okay? Now you're going to look at me and say, yeah, you're just fooling with me. I'm not. I have to work very, very hard to memorize things. And for whatever reason, because I love the language, and if I love something enough to memorize it, then I love it a lot. I'm willing to put in the work, the hours of work to memorize things. And this is over a lifetime. So what I know is that because I can recite shit every now and again, people are willing to give me, out of the goodness of their heart, this incredible reputation for having a fantastic memory, which I am honestly telling you I do not have. But I thank you for it. And so the reason I bring that up is not just to deprecate myself, but it's also to show how Joseph Smith may have just been only as good at memorizing things as yours truly, and still done the things that he did. I think that he was really remarkable. I think he knew the Bible backward and forward in certain chapters, the famous parts, better than others, naturally. And they end up showing up in all sorts of places in the Book of Mormon, which I'm reading again in conjunction with David P. Wright's paper about Alma's use of Hebrews in the Book of Mormon. But now I'm about to go off on my own tangent. So I'll hit it back to you, Bill.
By the way, I'll just note that so Lehi has a vision, and his son Nephi repeats parts of the vision and gives the interpretation thereof to the audience.
Yes.
Joseph Smith Sr. tells a vision. His son then retells the vision and decides what the interpretation thereof is.
And the fascinating part, otherwise unexplained, in the text of the Book of Mormon is a place where Nephi actually corrects his father on the dream, on the vision. You remember that part?
Yes.
I think it's about the water, and he didn't realize that it was all filthy because his mind was caught up with so many other things or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Which is very interesting that the son is correcting the father, not on the interpretation of the vision, but on what was actually in the vision at all.
Yeah, and the Book of Mormon
suggests that he must have thought that the vision would be absolutely identical between the two.
The Book of Mormon is at least one opportunity for Joseph Smith to let his father know what he's wrong about when it comes to beliefs and things.
Yeah.
It's how can his father, in any moment where your dad's like, kid, no. In that moment, he can't do that. His son has brought forth scripture. So it is a way for the son to lay down the theology and correct the father.
His father was a visionary man.
Yeah, he was, because he drank a little too much.
The captain is a visionary man. I'll just let that one hang out there for a while.
All right. So, thank you.
Well, gentlemen, have a wonderful evening. Thank you for your feedback, and y'all are awesome.
Take it easy.
Thank you so much, Sloan. And now we've got Grant. Could people stop calling so we can actually play these things?
All right.
I
Grant,
feel bad having people wait. Grant's been waiting so long.
Why don't we do this? Why don't Grant? How would you feel if we played a clip of Aaron Sherinian and you got to be the first one to give us some feedback on what you think is going on here?
That was brilliant, Bill.
Please. Thank you.
Excellent. Let me add this to the stage. Sound is on. Let me know if you guys, let me make sure it's up all the way.
Now, is this the third one?
This is the third one.
Okay. And Bill and I will be talking code about which one. This is clip 3. Now, this is a rather long clip. It's about 9 minutes. This is from Wednesday evening. It was the 6th of August, 2025, kicking off with the star, Aaron Sherinian, the director of communications for the LDS Church. And he's going to be on the stage, and he's going to be being asked questions that by who's the president of FAIR? Scott Gordon?
Scott Gordon. Scott
Gordon.
Yep, Scotty.
And he's asking him questions that are being funneled to him from different people. So we'll stop it at different places, but this is really, really fascinating. And you let me know in the live chat or the comments how you think Aaron Sherinian does at answering some of these questions.
You hear an echo or anything, you hear anything that messes it up, let me know. Can I skip ahead till maybe?
I did my best to avoid the hot seat, but we're here.
Here we
Right?
go.
It's happening. Okay.
We are here, yes. We're good.
This is just building suspense.
That's great. So first order of business is a lot of people think people come to the FAIR conference as speakers because they just do it out of goodness of heart. But the reality is we pay them in brownies. So from the Sugar Lane Company, here's your payment.
There's the promo.
Okay, so that kind of brings up a question as far as payment goes. The Pope just this past couple of weeks went to a big influencer conference, and he talked about supporting all these influencers and the support he gave. And there's been some talk online about the church paying influencers and such. Could you elaborate on that or tell us?
Stop it, Bill.
I'll elaborate on it, but I will also.
Okay, here's the thing. Who's getting these questions past Scott Gordon? I mean, these are the actual questions people want to know the answer to. The big story about the LDS Church paying influencers and giving them scripts of what to say and what not to say, and then entering into contracts with them. This is a huge deal. And now someone's asking him the question about it. And I want to know if you can understand what it is that Aaron Sherinian is saying? Because it sounds like a bunch of gobbledygook to me. And at first sounds like he's saying no, but then it sounds like he's saying, but maybe yes.
Say that in an attempt to be as frank and as transparent as possible, the church, through spokespeople, some of whom are here, has made it clear that the church does not pay for or enter into brand partnerships as was purported by some online. I'm not picking a fight with those people or trying to disagree with them publicly. What the church does do, of course, is engage with people who are the very best at what they do so that we, the church, can transparently use that content or use some of those ideas as we express with other people. Isn't that natural that we would want to engage with the people who are the very best at meeting people where they are or expressing what they do? Craftsmanship is something that is good because it gets to where people are.
But do you
And that
pay
is
them?
what the church does. And it's
But do you pay them? Okay, you can stop it there for a second.
The
Because
word
that was really an interesting answer. I thought it sounded like he's saying no, we don't. What actually it sounded like he was doing was he was using terms of art, entering into a trade agreement or something. Like he's saying, no, we don't enter, we don't do this to pay them, but we do something else. But then he says we want to reach out to them and use their influence, and that shouldn't be surprised, while never answering the question, which is on the front of everybody's mind. But do you pay them? And he wouldn't say it, which is either a real failing on his part for not answering the question if they don't pay them. And if they do pay them, then what he's doing is he's skirting the truth. What do you think, Grant?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Using the artist language, like a craft artisan, that was strange. The internet, if you coding, algorithm, paying SEO optimization, there's no artistry involved. That involves at least as far as I'm concerned, paying someone to put you near the top of the list. There's a pecking order that it's like an input output. There's no creativity,
You're right.
What
Grant,
do they think?
You're right. Not every podcast is as good as Mormonism After Dark, where every episode is a work of art.
Don't you guys think that Sherinian is parsing words? I mean,
oh yes.
No, what I mean by that though, RFM, is that so Sherinian is talking about how the church is paying people and they're creating these videos. And rather than his statement would be true if the church had these guys going into the church's studio, recording their whatever it is, their 5-minute bit, their half-hour bit, whatever they ought to be. And then the church owns that video and it publishes wherever it wants to. It publishes it in a Mormon ad or whatever. It's another thing when the way this deal works is that these people are making content. If I'm not mistaken, they're publishing them on their own platforms, TikTok.
I have to say that apparently this video of Sherinian was taken down. And if anybody can confirm or deny that for me, I'd appreciate it. This is what I have heard, is that it was taken down. And so this was actually saved and given to me from a saved account from a member of the audience.
Gotcha.
And I don't use the person's name because I don't think that person would want me to.
If people are posting content on venues like Instagram or TikTok or YouTube or wherever they put these short little videos at, then Sherinian is only capitalizing on half the truth, and he's not telling, he can't resolve the other issue, which is when you have people, you're paying
someone
to change their normal standard of content in order to say a specific thing that they didn't come up with on their own, but which the church asked them to say, then you're paying somebody for their testimony.
Yeah.
JT is saying they're not publishing on their own platforms. The church owns the video content. That got clarified by David Snell. To the extent that that's correct, because I didn't hear from David Snell directly. To the extent that's correct, then obviously money's changing hands between the church and FAIR.
Couldn't both be true? Couldn't people be allowed to post things themselves and the church would also own the content?
Yeah,
I feel like it would be something where they would submit it, and then after the editing and notes and series of eyeballs that look at the recorded message to make sure that it fits all, checks all the boxes, then that would be sent with explicit instructions to probably post it. And then, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me they would even tell them how to title it, but that's just me reaching or whatever.
Yeah, somebody out there.
Grant, I want you to know that the thought that was crossing my mind at the end of this, and we'll get to the next part of the clip here in a second, I think, is that where it is so obvious to me. I don't know if it's 35 years of cross-examining people or it's just having experience, because it seems to me that anybody with a lick of sense in Scott Gordon's position would be asking, but do you pay them?
Yes.
But do you pay them?
But
do you pay them?
Direct.
And he never asked the question.
Direct questions are not appreciated in the Mormon church. And I mean, anecdotally, hearing from other people's experience, it was truly one of the largest shelf-breaking items as a child, where I could not determine why I could not get a straight answer. As I got straight answers in other organizations in my life, when I had an issue, I could raise it and feel comforted. It was the realm of my life where questions caused pain. And so it doesn't surprise me that was not settled in any way.
Thank you for that, Grant. I appreciate it. I want to read this out loud because in the recorded episode, this is a counter narrative about Snell, Mock Schnell. Gazelam says Snell is wrong. And by the way, I'm not vouching for either side, but apparently there's a controversy about this issue.
Okay.
Snell is wrong. The influencer who exposed this was supposed to post videos sponsored by the church on their own platform to their own audience.
Yeah.
Snell was being misleading. So I have little idea what this is all about. I don't know all the background, but I want to make sure that everybody knows that this is something that's contested.
And we'll play another clip here of it. But it's obvious that when you're in these kinds of spaces, the person that's supposed to be critically examined, you're supposed to critically examine, give them a chance to tell the truth to the audience. Instead, the questions are orchestrated. And whenever there's the perfect opportunity to ask the next critical question, giving the person grace and benefit of the doubt and letting them not have to answer that is preferred.
That's not, in my opinion, it's not grace. It's not the benefit of the doubt. It's being in the tank.
Yeah.
It's that's communicated before. You are on the same page. You're not doing it out of your heart, looking out for the other person. He's not looking out for the spokesperson of the LDS Church and asking these softball questions. I believe all of this was orchestrated beforehand
to make the church sound good.
I mean, if you look into anything that takes an ounce of anything before it's released to the public, I was in the Coast Guard for 9 years. And even when we would have people coming out taking pictures on our boats of us live in action, doing stuff, there would still be where we would go back, debrief, and then I would talk and they would say that things would still be discussed. So it is not a direct, that things are not transparent. This is not an interview where it's cold and nothing was discussed beforehand.
I think you're right.
A lot of people, and I was under the impression that a lot of interviews were conducted in that way.
Yeah. Grant, did that cover everything? I know you called in and then you got hijacked into watching the video, but does that take care of everything you called in about?
Yeah. The thing that I wanted to call in for, it's just adjacent. I would like to call in on another time. I don't want to take away from the this has to do with my background in maritime navigation, history, knowing the cultures around the world that first created the tools and implements and technology for navigation. On that tied
Are you
with
saying Nephi did it?
Going from the Middle East to North America with the Jaredites and Lehi's family.
Just
and they could do it.
Miles,
would love to
complicated.
talk about that
Yeah.
at a different time because
Different time, absolutely.
about navigation,
Yep.
I've sailed across oceans,
Yes, call in at a different
about
time.
seas and currents and the northern and southern hemisphere, the trade winds and all the latitudes.
Let's dive into that.
That's something totally different, but
Let's do it.
fascinating and something that should not be brushed over in my
Hey, I can't wait to talk to you about it.
Yep.
All
All
right,
right.
easy.
And another
Thanks for calling in, Grant.
Sounds good. Bye-bye.
All right,
Okay,
bye.
talk to you later. Have a good weekend.
Let me put this back up on the screen. Thank you, Grant. All right, so let's see where it goes from here. Because he's in the
We
middle.
got another question.
It's been an open conversation. I'm grateful to say that you're just a click away of finding out what the church's answer has been on this. And I hope that brings you confidence that the church wants to meet people where they are. The example that you mentioned earlier, I think, is quite interesting because so often people are saying, oh, what's new has to be less real or more superficial than what
We're still talking about the
communications
influencers.
tactics I was raised on. You laid out the story of FAIR. You've talked about evolution, and that's what we're seeing as well. We have to meet people where they are because each of them is a child of God.
Thank you. And so the next question I had was, you're new to Salt Lake. You're new to working in the church office building. It's been reported that the quickest way to lose your testimony is to work in the church office building. How do you find it? I mean, you work with the brethren, you interact with them, you interact with staff, the
Well, actually, Scott, that's true.
bureaucracy.
That's a dumb question.
What do you think?
I wasn't planning on the question, but I'm gonna answer it with an open heart, the same way that you've invited me here. I am so grateful.
How's it working for Stephen Snow?
What do you mean? Oh, the open heart thing?
No, working at the church office building, that it hurts your testimonies. And we make these excuses like, well, no one ever really loses it. Well, you get word back from lots of people in all areas of the church where people start to say things that are outside the bounds or whatever. And they either start walking their own path or they rein it in. But there's lots of people that work for the church that have had to make hard choices between employment and community respect and walking towards whatever the truth is, for them.
And yes, absolutely. And you realize the reason I mock Scott Gordon's question is because what he's saying is you get a hefty 6-figure salary from your boss. What do you think of the guy?
Yeah. If you were willing to say the next thing, you wouldn't be working for him. You're going back into work tomorrow, right? So he's going to say, you could ask him any hard question. He's either going to dodge it or give some sort of workaround answer.
Now, it might be a clever question if Scott Gordon was merely attempting to gauge how cleverly and how well Aaron can lie.
Yeah, and then followed up. And as you said, he should have immediately asked, so these people do get paid.
Confirm. Do they get
paid? Yep. Just the truth. Well, here it is.
To have learned that there are people who are great at what they do because they love who they are. And that includes people who are working very hard to implement the things that we talked about tonight, including the people of the communications team. I've been so heartened to find out that these are best in class because they love everyone around them. Some of the things that you mentioned in your question is amazing, because what I said in the speech is something that I believe every day, and I hope that you believe every day. There has never been a more exciting time to talk about the gospel of Jesus Christ. There's never been a more exciting time in history for us to be doing what we're doing. So it's a privilege, and it's an honor, and it's a lesson every day, because consecrated people are doing something miraculous. There's always new learnings in a large organization. And anytime you're looking for a flaw in an organizational structure, you'll probably find it. But anytime you're looking for a miracle in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, it's probably right in front of you, and I find it every day.
Oh my!
I know I'm supposed to be asking you.
It's a good thing I didn't eat before the show. Jacob, he was talking about how the people that he works with, they love who they are, and that's why they're so good at what they do. And I don't even know what the hell that's supposed to mean. I mean, Jacob Hansen loves who he is, but that doesn't mean he's good at what he does.
Wow. What I just heard seemed it was like, I don't know, it sounded like a kiss ass kind of answer.
Bill, by the way, is this the first time you're hearing this? Because that's valuable.
I did not listen to this earlier today.
Okay, so we're getting your total reaction.
Yeah, it's a kiss ass answer to the church. I'm just lucky. I'm just lucky every day to be doing the things that this thing tells me to do, and to do it the way it wants it done. And the church changes over time. And if you're looking for flaws, you'll find it. But this thing is going to change a bunch, but also those changes shouldn't bother you because all things change.
And I see miracles in front of me every day. By the way, what's going on with his garter? I think his garter is sagging a bit because he's constantly readjusting it throughout the interview.
Yeah.
You would think with what the church pays Aaron Sherinian, he could afford good garters.
Yeah. I don't know what to make of it. It definitely seems like a little bit of an FU to the post-Mormons, right? The folks on this side who question, how Sherinian and the church's relationship really is. This is sort of a chance for Fair Mormon to go, there, take that. This is the answers to the questions. He's on the church's side.
I predict that Aaron Sherinian, having come up for air, being allowed to appear in public after a year and a half of employment with the church, this is like his February 2nd, it's Groundhog Day for Aaron Sherinian. I think he's going back into the cellar for another year and a half at least before we hear anything from him again.
Yeah, I think that this is one way the church could be testing the waters to see if they put him in front of us a whole lot more. They might be trying to see what faithful Mormonism does with him being interviewed by Fair Mormon.
At least Elder Holland can feel better about having someone to give him competition with his BBC interview.
Yeah. Fair wouldn't be interviewing him if they didn't want him, if the church didn't want him in front of a camera. He had the church's permission to do this.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not his garter after all. It could be a rash.
It could be. All right, here's a little more of that. We do have one person on the phone lines. We'll get to you right after
questions, but I just want to second what you said, because I have interacted with some of the people that work there and such, and I'm amazed with their commitment and their testimony and their skill level. It's just really incredible. And that goes from the paid employees up to the brethren who are very skilled and very knowledgeable at what they do, in addition to being spiritual and spiritually minded.
Oh my gosh.
So that brings up our next question.
You will not ass kiss me, says Scott Gordon.
Yeah.
I'm the biggest ass kisser around here. And they're talking about how great the crew is at the PR department, which has got to be the worst PR department in the history of PR departments.
They don't have much to work with, RFM. I don't think it's fair.
They still are crap. These are hacks.
No,
this is like the McDonald's of the PR world.
If your job was to smooth over what the LDS church believes and teaches, you'd have a hell of a time trying to do that well.
This is where teenagers go to get their first job. While they're in high school, it's McDonald's. That's at the skill level that they exhibit.
He talks about the skills of the highest leader, the highest echelons of the church. They're skilled too.
Bill.
Half of them are lawyers. One of them is anyway, an airplane pilot, right? If they could start a fire in an Eagle Scout camp, maybe these are the guys. But if you're talking about a wide range of human expertise and knowledge, it's such a small little drop in the bucket that what they pick from.
Okay, I'm sorry. I almost said I started to interrupt you because I had this exciting idea, which I think is if you go back and replay Scott Gordon or do it in your head, whichever you want, you will notice, I think, a fascinating psychological Mormon aspect, which is he starts complimenting extravagantly one group of people that work for the church and then feels compelled to not leave it there, but make sure that he also compliments the top church leaders, lest the top church leaders think that by stopping with the employees, he is dissing them in some sort of way. I swear to you, I think that's what just happened.
It's exactly what happened, and we will go back and we will watch it. This is the little game. He went a step too far and then knew he had to take another step that he wasn't quite
Pretty soon,
intending to take. Yeah.
pretty soon he was going to be complimenting God.
Yeah. Because these guys are hand selected among a few certain trades. You know, if you're the president of the church university, if you're a lawyer, that seems to get you right up the ladder.
Don't forget the kiss-assery.
Yeah. So there's
Or
a
excuse
certain
me,
kind of,
the ass-kissery. I think I just did it in deniable plausibility.
you made it into a Yodaism. Here's Scott Gordon.
Latter-day Saints, it's probably right in front of you, and I find it every day.
I know I'm supposed to be asking you
darter.
questions, but I just want to second what you said, because I have interacted with some of the people that work there and such, and I'm amazed with their commitment and their testimony and their skill level. It's just really incredible. And that goes from the paid employees up to the brethren who are very skilled and very knowledgeable with being spiritual and spiritually minded.
He did do it, didn't he?
Our next question, and this is
Okay.
I love all the students of this school. You are what make this school special. Oh, and the teachers too.
And the principal, he's the best. He's so skilled. Nobody's more skilled than the principal.
Oh boy, he did.
All right, next question.
All right, here it is.
Enough about me. Tell me what you think of me.
This is a much more difficult question. So, when you first came on board the church, there was a lot of online flack, should we say, and people I've gotten a few questions here asking directly whether or not you support the family proclamation, and how was that for you when you first came on board? Has it improved, and how do you deal with that?
So the question is, he has to either criticize or pledge his allegiance to the family proclamation.
Yes, which stands for, I think, deeply held views of Aaron Sherinian. Okay, and we're talking about the whole LGBTQ thing, which is the family proclamation is against, and he appears to be for and have a history of being an advocate. So that is why that's such a good question. Of course, leave it to Scott Gordon to fuck up an absolutely good question by asking him different things, both before and after the main question, to allow Aaron Sherinian now to not answer the question. Although this is the part where he goes on, and then he'll come to a part in the middle where it seems like he's answering the question that was asked about supporting it without saying that that's what he's talking about. And then he'll do a duplicate of what led up to that point. It's kind of like a big chiasmus.
I feel like we're watching Between Two Ferns. Is what
I've learned a number of things, and I've taken counsel from some people that I admire and love and that I sustain. And one of the things that I've learned is to...
This is the counsel that they gave him.
Yeah.
He's
actually going to say that, okay, now look, this is a little interpretation on my part. By this point in the show, I think I'm entitled, okay? He's going to tell that the leaders told him to sit down and shut the fuck up for a year and a half. And he's going to interpret this as the commandment of God, as he thinks it's in section 101 of the Doctrine and Covenants, to be still. And I had to be still. And he's going to focus on this, be still shit, because that's what he's been doing for a year and a half. It's been an enforced stillness.
Yeah. Here it is.
And how was that for you when you first came on board? Has it improved? And how do you deal with that?
I've learned a number of things, and I've taken counsel from some people that I admire and love and that I sustain. And one of the things that I've learned is to study carefully something that doesn't come natural to me, and that's in Doctrine and Covenants 101, I believe, the idea about being still. And sometimes I thought that being still meant doing nothing. But being still is active. And it means allowing for some things to happen so that some better things can take place.
It means doing nothing and getting paid.
You use the term flack. I'll call it dialogue. I'll call it some critique. I'll call it whatever you want to call it. One of the things that I've learned is that when there's, in the internet age and in our current reality, We want to react immediately. That's a tactic in certain parts of communication. But when it comes to you, sometimes the best thing to do is to be still. There's real value in giving a moment for you to reflect and to let the other people that are talking with or maybe at you some time. The other thing that I've learned is that I got some quick advice when
I think that's when he's going to go into this part, but I fell asleep there for a bit and I might be wrong.
Everybody will just stay still for a minute. We'll all come to the same place, or we'll better understand each other, or like there's certainly some effort on his part to both spiritualize the time out he was given and to let the naysayers know that they're going to see it. It's gonna look in a way that if you would have sat back and just watched, you could have been a little less critical and a little more aware of how much was changing and how fast.
You know, this is my third or fourth time listening to this, and it's actually becoming quite apparent as I'm able to parse out his words.
Yeah.
He keeps talking about leaders of the church, those he sustains. He was very kind of the leaders of the church to give him this lesson in the doctrinal principle of being still.
Know your place, huh? All right, here's some more of it.
And there were things coming at me, and I'm talking to a room of people who know what it's like to put yourself out there. So you receive you have the same sort of reality perhaps in your own life. Someone said to me in a well-meaning way, well, don't take it personally. There is nothing more personal. I take it personally because I think the person who's taking issue with me or who's criticizing me or who has something to serve me, they're probably taking it very personally. And that's rough. But if I really want to be a peacemaker, if I really want to follow his counsel, I probably have to take it personally. Not to react or be rude, not to be reactionary or ruthless, but to be real and to say to myself, that person on the other end of the line, if you will, the proverbial line, is expressing something very personal. And what is it they're trying to say? They love the Lord, and they're expressing something that they're working through. So maybe one of the best things that I can do is not to be weak, not to let things that are untrue go unresolved or unacknowledged. But if I'm going to be a peacemaker, I have to see that it's personal for them. And there's something driving a question. I hope that answers the question. And of course, I've been very clear. And my role, my job, is to support the leaders of the church and to be a servant of the Lord.
Can we go back for just a second? Because all of a sudden now, this is the part where he shifts, and I think for a few brief seconds, he addresses the main thrust of the question, but he doesn't say that's what he's doing. But he says not only does he support the leaders, but that it's his job to support the leaders of the church. Oops.
He's employed. He gets a salary in order to do this thing. He has qualifications that deem him an expert candidate to get paid by the church a salary in order to reposition, massage anything the church does into optimum positive public benefit.
And when I say oops, I trust everybody knows that that's not something that the head of the communications department for the church should be saying. That I support them because it's my job, which means because they pay me. Oh my Lord. Was that Freudian? I'm going to go with Freudian on that one.
Yeah, it's not just I'm lucky to work for them, but I've had a pleasure all my life having a testimony of the gospel of Jesus Christ. It was these guys employ me. And of course, as an employee of them who's agreed to these terms, this is the agreement I made. I'm going to operate within my job and defend the church at all costs.
And if I can just say, when I had a testimony of the church and sustained the brethren, I wasn't getting paid by them to do it.
No.
I know he misspoke there, but I think he spoke more than he meant to.
There is one moment, though. I mean, he does go on for a minute or two, very genuinely pointing to the flack, as Scott put it, but the resistance or the discomfort that was put back on him. And that his job was to take it personally. And I thought the way he explained that in recognizing that the other person, the reason they're all worked up in this moment, the reason they're saying really harsh things is because their own discomfort or fear over losing something about them, right? Losing some piece of their own identity. And so I think he really was hitting on a really cool grasp of how the other side is feeling when they bump into you. But then he goes right into that rote answer about the family proclamation. And he does feel like, because he went through this whole diatribe, and then he comes back to this moment where he feels like he needs to say something to answer the question. He does need to establish his loyalty.
And now if you're Greg Mattson, okay, if you're Greg Mattson, who already lost his cookies when this guy was hired by the church, right, and did videos about it, if you're him and people who are conservative in the church like him, then this guy goes silent for a year and a half. And the first time he makes a real appearance at all is at the fair conference. He's asked the direct question, well, as direct as Scott Gordon put it, but still, whether he supports the family proclamation, and he waffles and he waffles and he waffles for a long time. There's a lot of waffles on that stage. And now he's going to get to the point in the middle where he appears to address it. And this is how he does it.
Yeah. This is how he does it. Yeah. Anyway, his defense of the family proclamation it's just a promise of loyalty. He didn't even tell you how he really feels about the proclamation. He didn't say that directly. He just said, whatever this church does, I'm doing that. That's what I'm doing.
Right. Do you put the cursor or whatever it is back to where he starts that part?
Yeah, I can go back a little bit here.
If you hadn't, because I think it's very important here where he does appear to respond to whether he supports the family proclamation.
To say they love the Lord and they're expressing something that they're working through.
Oh, he's talking
So
about
maybe one of the best things that I can do is not to be weak, but if I'm going to be a peacemaker, having a question, I hope that answers the question. And of course, I've been very clear, and my role, my job is to support the leaders of the church and to be a servant of the Lord. That's what we're all doing here. That's what we're trying to do. And I've answered those questions, and I know that they've been answered many times. But the question is, when someone says to you, don't take it personally, what they're probably saying to you is, don't let it stop you from doing the work you're doing.
Let's run away the way we
That's what I
came
can
in.
say to some of you. I wish I could reach out to some of you.
What's that, RFM?
Let's run away the way we came in. He went through all this crap to get to the point. He didn't answer the question. He says it's been answered before in a lot of places, and then he runs out the way he came in. In other words, covering the same ground about taking things personally. This is all quite deliberate on his part.
Yeah, if this was a genuine interview, right, there would be questions that would follow up and say, yeah, but back to my original question, how do you feel about the family proclamation? I would put him on the spot again.
And by the way,
Yeah.
I can't see close enough, but I think that Scott may have given him a signal or a word that clued him into the fact that he hadn't answered the question. Because he looks like he's finishing the question. He's finishing his answer. He leans into Scott, says if that answers the question. And then he sees something from Scott. And then he says, of course, I support the brethren because it's my freaking job. It's also apparently his job to be a disciple of Christ.
Yeah, I wonder if we can find that again. Let's take a look here.
I've been very clear, and I hope that answers the question. And of course, I've been very clear.
He said,
I hope that answers the question. And of course,
I wonder if he was just saying it did that answer the question? That's what I would have naturally said there. And I do think that Sherinian's pickup of the next statement comes so seamlessly that I would give them a benefit of the doubt and say that there wasn't any sort of prompt for that.
Yeah, either he remembered it on his own or Scott prompted him to remember what the question was. And, that certainly has happened to me. I don't want to say, being live, as I often am, that a question will be asked and I'll go off on something else, something that appears attractive to me at the time, and I'll forget what the question was. And maybe that's what happened to him. But when he did get to answering the question, he did not answer the question.
No. You know, apologetics is designed to protect the institutional theology, right? It defends Christianity, it defends Mormonism, whatever apologetics it is. But when you're you and me out in the crowd, we're young in the church, we just start to come into contact with, there's people out there criticizing our faith, and there are people out there who help us to resolve those concerns. We seem to take the belief that the ultimate goal is to find the truth, and that's what those apologists are there to help us do. But that isn't what they're there to do, to help you find the truth. And Sherinian, again, the reason, Scott, in this conversation, this is a conference about defending the church. Meanwhile, people out there want the truth. They want to know how these things work, and they're in the crowd. And Scott, on some level, has and he doesn't, but on some level, he has an obligation to like ask a hard question and
just ask the same question a second time.
Yeah.
So you're saying that you do support the family proclamation?
Right. You can restate it as a positive and give them the chance to affirm it, but ask the question. And they never ask the questions. Every apologist and every spokesperson, every featured speaker is allowed to stop their line of logic wherever they want to.
Mm-hmm. When it starts getting uncomfortable for them, for the group, for the congregation, for the testimony.
Yeah.
And by the way, once you get him to have to say, yes, I support the family proclamation, then of course you want to say, well, I guess that means you support this part of the family proclamation. And then we start watching him squirm. This is what he's trying to avoid, if it's not clear. He's trying to avoid being put in that position. As they're coming out there, he even refers to it as the hot seat. I think that is done jokingly, but I think there's an element of truth in it. And he's wanting to avoid having that line of questions put to him. So he wants to avoid the issue of the proclamation and supporting it altogether. I think that's what's going on.
Why did the church pick this moment to unveil Aaron Sherinian?
This has got to be the safest place he could possibly show up. You know, it is the fair conference. And what harm could he do? But he keeps, well, he's not knocking him out of the park, except in a bad way. So I'll keep that. He's knocking him out of the park. He's knocking him so far out of the park that they're hitting cars in the parking lot. That's the problem. And the cars belong to all the general authorities.
And they're all behind home plate. Yeah. All right. Is there another soundbite in this that's
interesting? I think so, because you see it's not completed.
Okay, here we go.
I've been very clear. And my role, leaders of the church.
Past that.
That's what we're all doing here. That's what we're trying to do. And I've answered those many times. Don't take it personally, what they're probably doing. I hope that's what I can say to some of you. And if I ever tell you don't take it personally, help people express their questions and have an informed response.
I find that all of us are on a journey, and all of us come from different perspectives. And what's amazing to me is how we can come together as a church, and we can all grow and learn together. And it's really good. Which brings up our next question I have, which asks, it's a person says if I can find it again, I've lost it. There we go. So they've been active in online discussions and such, but they're getting tired. And they want to spread the gospel, but they're kind of tired of doing it. What advice do you give them?
So this is the fresh courage take point, right? And I love that if we study the Savior and how he communicated, there was not a moment where.
Oh yeah, okay, so that's where it clipped off. But then now there's a fourth one, which is a shorter one, where he talks about online resources and is basically saying there's nothing hidden. And there's a very fascinating part in here. Listen for it, okay? Where he tacitly admits that it's not easy enough to find, that there's been an intentional effort to try and hide this information in the essays on the church's website. But he'll focus that it's there. Anybody can find it. Although he could have done a better job. I think it's one of those kind of things, sort of like Elder Snow mentioned as well.
Yep, I'll put it up here. And if you're in the call-in studio, we'll be with you here just shortly, right after this last clip and us chatting for just a second about it. So we'll be right with you. Okay, here's this one.
Church communication puts out a statement that somebody disagrees with, suddenly that must not have been reviewed by the brethren, because that's certainly not approved. And so I have a specific question on that. There are people still questioning the official validity of the Tim Ballard statement. This undermines their confidence in the validity of other things published by Newsroom. What can you say about that?
I hope so. I'm not going to address that specific issue because I'm not sure what specifically it's referring to.
Bullshit.
What I am going to say is that
was total bullshit.
Who else is supposed to answer if not the public? You can tell us whether that statement came from the church or not.
Yes.
That's easy.
He knows exactly why. Okay. I'm so sorry, but I try to not be a conspiracy theorist, Bill, but I have to tell you that the church continues to give more and more fuel for the flames of the conspiracy theorists. In other words, if you're one of these people who thinks that there was some kind of disconnect, that there is a shadow government within the church that is operating the church without the knowledge or consent of the apostles, and this guy, Aaron Sherinian, comes out and answers that question the way he just answered the question, isn't that going to make you think more likely that you're right?
If you learn that Sherinian and Robin Jensen and some of the other guys, they're the deep state. There's another team on the inside working. And who knows who put that statement out? It could have been the church, could have been the deep state. We could fix that right now. We could answer it for you and set you down clearly so that you can be corrected or know that you were right. And I can't do that. I'm not allowed to answer that question. I've been told before this moment, I cannot answer that.
And I got to tell you, it's been a while, but that is one of the things that we were waiting for, wasn't it? We were waiting for the church to confirm that this really was from the church.
They don't want to.
And they never did. And they knew that there was this huge controversy among members of the church, between the fans of Tim Ballard who thought this can't be real from the church. This has to be the dark, the shadow government, right? The dark side of the church. And then the people who are on the other side, of course, and there's this huge schism being created. The church never did a damn thing to say which side it was on and whether this was real, okay? That's really what it was, that this was real, that this really was from Elder Ballard. And now, here comes Aaron Sherinian about 2 years later, I think. I think it's about 2 years after the fact. He's being asked the question saying, people still, almost 2 years later, are still wondering. And we're asking you. Of course, we can't ask the apostles, who presumably we should be able to trust because the director of communications would be part of the shadow government, I would think. So we're asking the wrong guy. But even so, he refuses to answer.
He doesn't want to tell the truth even now. Why? Why might the church not want to answer that question?
All right. Well, using the logic I used before, it's because of where it would lead. And it would probably lead back to Melvin Ballard.
Yeah. And they can't do that.
I think that's it. I think you asked a good question, and I think it led to what must likely be the answer. Once again, he is shutting off a line of questioning, not necessarily because the first question would be bad, but because of where it could lead.
There's nothing nefarious about asking the source of where something was said to verify that it came from within the institution.
You would think that the church would want to assure its membership that its website has not been hacked and that they can actually have trust in what they read on the website. By not responding, they're throwing it all up into the air, a massive confusion. We don't know what we can trust is really from the church on the church's website and what has been hacked in.
Yeah. It seems so simple that every institution would want to validate what's being claimed that came forth from it.
Yeah.
And
Very
these
much
guys
so.
don't want to answer it.
Especially if it were so, what would you say, bombastic, so unusual, so controversial. as that out of nowhere, seemingly out of nowhere, excoriation of the church of Tim Ballard, who, I mean, he was at the height of his fame with the Sound of Freedom movie, in which he was played by Jesus.
Yeah, you don't, but also RFM, you don't answer questions that way unless you think if I do answer them truthfully, there's a much bigger story still to be told about the facts and where the data goes. It's almost like they don't want to lead anybody to wherever the data, like you'd have to think through it, but what are they protecting by saying the truth?
Mm-hmm.
It seems like there's something else they're afraid of being pointed out and talked about in connection to that.
Yes. And the answer is almost always going to be, to what are they protecting? It's going to be the church, which ends up being themselves in many instances.
Yeah. Here's a little more of that.
I hope what people will do is I hope that they will take advantage that are online. You mentioned an online site, so I'm going to flip the question with a charge. People who say that there is not enough information about something, or things are not being transparent, I hope you'll spend some time with the topics, with the questions that are out on the church website for you to see. People who are taking issue with certain things that you've mentioned maybe have missed the vast library of testimony, of doctrine, and of explainers, I'll call them, that are available online right now. Maybe it's incumbent upon us to make sure that you're aware of them more, but have you spent time recently
Right there.
to see some of the topics that are available? Not only
That was the caveat, I believe. Maybe it's incumbent on us to make sure you're aware of them more, in which I hear we've been hiding these pretty well from you so that most people don't know they exist.
Yeah.
Or we haven't been taking the normal steps we would, in other words, of announcing them on the front page of the website, right? There's no announcement. There's no, hey, guys, there's this topics and everything. They just created something, which to me at the time was 3 clicks deep. And they created this new thing, and they just sort of silently started putting these essays in. It would not have been, lest memory be forgotten and the past be changed. This was not something that the church announced. These essays were found in every instance that I can recall and announced by people who were scouring the church's website and looking for anomalies and finding these and then reporting them. This was from, I believe, the post-Mormon community who had to do the announcing of these essays. That's how little the church did to inform its members. In fact, remember in Hawaii, there was this, I think it was a husband and wife Sunday school teaching team who were teaching from one of the essays, got called into their bishop, and were facing discipline because I don't believe the bishop, first off, the bishop sure as hell didn't know the existence of the essay. And I think it was the one about the priesthood and temple ban. But, and then I think that he thought that they must not be correct, that this came from the church website.
He is defining transparency in a really limited way. The way he defines transparency leaves out a clear effort to give people the information on all sides that they would need to make an informed decision. And I just don't. I think transparency requires you revealing to the person you're talking to not just the strengths of your argument, but the weaknesses of it as well. When you do a one-sided thing, that's not transparent at all.
Katie Ash says, if only they had an army of missionaries to get the word out. You know, this is not, you're right. This is not an attempt to educate the members. This is all, what is it, Bill? It's deniable plausibility. It's plausible deniability, no matter how you say it. This is what it is. It's why it was put there in the first place. It was put there to not be read, but to be pointed to when one was challenged on never addressing an issue.
It's just a dog and pony show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
But that was the thing that he said that made me think he was tacitly acknowledging that they really had not announced this or let members know that it was there. And now he's sort of going to pretend like, hey, it's always been there. And, we've been hiding that for a long time.
Yeah.
Only on your Gospel Library app, but online. There's very little that's not. I mean, is there something that's not addressed? I don't know.
Adam God.
There's this moment right now where we need to ask ourselves, are people going to take issue because they think something is being hidden, or do they just not have access to what's available? Because
That's
I think
'cause it's hidden.
everything that you're going to look for, you're probably going to find. And if you need some help, ask for it. Ask for help in answering some of these questions from the people in this room. Ask directly to the church communication department. Plenty of people do. And ask your leaders who have access to these resources. There is so much available online. And we may be missing the forest for a question about a tree.
I have another one that came in here. It says, how do I try to support my LGBTQ brothers and sisters?
Oh, this is
standing
terrible.
for the family proclamation of the world? I find it hard to balance that line.
I think that the answer is love. I think that's what I've learned from this room. I think the answer is love. It's obedience to what is truth. It's following our prophet, and it's loving people in our lives.
I don't think you can exactly do all of those at the same time.
That was a nothing response. That was the stupidest response I've ever heard. It was like, marriage. You do that better than I do. How does that go, Bill?
Marriage. I don't
Yeah, the answer is love. The answer is Jesus.
Yeah, it's really, is that what they call a non sequitur?
This is how we support our LGBTQ brethren in the church, is by doing what? Following Russell Nelson? You got to be kidding me. He's the one who's cracking their skulls in the first place.
Yeah, could you help me know which behaviors of exclusion are the love that you're talking about? Because I don't know what the hell that means. It's just a fluffy word until you tell me that you charge your sinning brothers and sisters with damnation because you love them. I mean, people condemn people all the time in with religious fervor out of what they claim is love. I want to know what love we're talking about. There's all kinds of love, and some of them hate pretty awfully.
This is the worst Q&A I think I've ever heard in my life. There might be others that come close, but honestly, I think the fact that he's been out of sight for a year and a half has really increased expectations, built up the idea that maybe this guy was really going to say something other than the party line, and even saying that very badly and amorphously, and refusing to answer obvious questions, and feeding conspiracy theorists amongst the members of the church, which I don't think is in his job description. Maybe it is, and he's really earning his money.
Why would you, all right, you're out there right now, you're a believer in the church, you tune into the show because you want to hear what the other side has to say. And so I ask you, why do you take seriously the words that come out of the mouth of a man who tells you on the front end that it's his job to say what comes out of his mouth? Whatever comes out of his mouth, he's been paid to say it.
It was like a Carrie Mulestein moment. You may want to clip that one.
Yeah. Aaron Sherinian has come forward, and he is church broke.
Whatever his past may have been, he seems to be a hack.
Yeah.
Just another in a long line of hacks.
I think Jacob Hansen, I think Quick Media, I think you can put your fears at ease. Aaron Sherinian is going to do what he's told to do.
He's not even a talented hack.
Oh, goodness gracious. Well, there he is. Is there another thing here at the end of this?
Oh, how the mighty are fallen. Was that the fourth clip, right? The last one?
Clip, the last, maybe.
I think that's it. I think we should go to calls and call it a night, because it's not going to get better than this. We had so much more prepared. Remember, this is the show, Bill, that we weren't going to prepare for it, but dang it. This is where we get to talk about the stuff that's really going on behind the scenes. It doesn't have to be all crafted and researched and everything, but we can have fun and include things that are really, I think, interesting and exciting, but that wouldn't necessarily fill an entire show.
Right. And it makes for a great conversation, and we can be a little more laid back and a little more, I think, funny, but snarky too. And I think it's really great. So caller, let's just see if you're there. Caller, what's the name? Oh, having an issue. So give me a second.
Happy Transformation Day, caller.
Oh, it's Elle.
There we go, Elle. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. Thanks. Thanks for taking the call. Nice to meet you guys this way. It's my first time calling in. I'm a little nervous.
Well, don't be, because there's only 369 people watching.
I noticed that. I was checking while I was waiting.
They're all your friends.
So, well, that's good. So basically, I really identify with you guys. I'm about your same age, even though I sound really young. I grew up in Salt Lake, not
What kind of
LDS.
crack is that?
What kind of crap is that?
Crack. You're the same age as us, even though you sound really young. Okay,
Well,
so you're saying you're
technically, I sound
65?
really young.
Are you 65?
You do sound you do sound young.
That's all I'm saying. It's something I've heard my whole life, that I sound very young on the phone. That's all. It has nothing to do with your guys' ages.
Well, you sound very young.
But anyway, so but I had an interesting experience. I don't want to tell my whole story, but I had an interesting experience because I moved from Pennsylvania to Salt Lake City. My family is non-LDS. My family's Catholic. My grandmother and grandfather, like from Spain. My grandmother had darker skin. So she had all these stories about how she was, maligned in the church, and my mom couldn't play with Mormon kids and things like that. So I come over there in junior high school, coming from Pennsylvania, and everybody asked what religion you are, and it was like a big deal. And then I had a Greek Orthodox friend, and she gave me all this anti-Mormon literature, and I read it. I sunk my teeth into it, and it was like a part of my formation growing up non-LDS in the LDS church. And then lo and behold, in my early 30s as a single parent, I converted, and now I'm not active in a church. So I really am very thankful for all of these post-Mormon content creators. And I still find it fascinating that, like, all those things that I learned and read about when I was in junior high and was contemplating, as a teenager, like, people are like finding out now. And I just find that so amazing and so incomprehensible. But what I'm missing is, all of a sudden, there's this whole movement. Maybe I've been out of the church too long, or not around Utah Mormons. Like, I've been out of state, and like this whole movement and identification with MAGA, and like there are people that don't even know the Mormon church. Like, I know the Mormon church from growing up in that period, and like the church is with like the garment and not doing the symbol, all the things that I learned as an anti-Mormon that I studied that the church was doing. I guess they're trying to back away from all of that stuff now, and so that part is disappearing. And now what's left is people are just going to associate a church with like MAGA or anti-MAGA, or people are saying that I learned how to be, they were focused on eugenics. And I'm just having a hard time trying to figure out how to deal with that and stuff like that. And I don't know why I feel privy. I wasn't a Mormon for that long of my life, but I don't know why I feel like, oh no, Mormons aren't really that way.
You want to take that one, Bill?
I guess.
Yeah. I'll just say it. There is this weird feeling when the institution that, for lack of a better words, that fucked you over, changes a ton. And then suddenly it's like softer and watered down, and nothing that you had to believe that was crazy and offensive, and it marginalized you, and it marginalized the people that you said the things about that the church said were its beliefs. And now it changes into something soft and wishy-washy, and it no longer holds on to all the things, and you can believe lots of big wide net kinds of ways around each of these words and issues. It sort of feels, I don't know, it sort of feels like a shitty thing to the person that it happened to, but it is good that the church got better for the next generation.
It did, except for there's still some other ex-Mormon content people I mentioned in, when they asked me what my question was, but they're talking about how they were, it wasn't soft and watery down. They were like more MAGA, or they were more focused on the racism aspect, or they're taught to be like racist. And that wasn't my experience of the Mormons, most of the Mormons around me that I got to experience as a convert,
Yeah, and I think that's true. And there's all sorts of Mormons with all sorts of attitudes. They may skew in a certain direction predominantly or more than the rest of the populace. But regardless of that, yeah, absolutely. Some of the best people I know are Mormons, and one of them is a mission president right now in, I think it's Chile, south of the border there somewhere, so far south that it's approaching the pole. But so yeah, absolutely. And I think it's very important. The issue that I think that you're raising, which is that we need to take the effort to judge people based on who they are and not what religion they belong to.
Agreed. I just didn't understand my sense of like, hey, wait a minute, like, no, not Mormons aren't really like that. Me defending this church that actually I was just a convert in. Like, I just didn't really understand that strong. Like, I don't know. It's just weird. It is messed up.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for the call.
Yeah. Thank you for addressing my call. My question. Thanks. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Young voice speaker whose name I'm not sure we got.
Well, that's it. 9:32. Another hour and a half of Mormonism After Dark. A lot of folks in the live chat said it was a great show tonight.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. And I concur heartily. What a great show. And, we couldn't have done it without Aaron Sherinian. I don't think we're going to be seeing a lot of Aaron Sherinian. It was like this poem. It's sort of a joke poem. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of these. I think they were popular about like 100 years ago. They're called Little Willie. And here's the example. Little Willie. Alas for Little Willie. We shan't see Willie anymore. For what he thought was H2O was H2SO4. So that is a little poem that my dad taught me, which is how I learned the formula for sulfuric acid. But that first part, I think that's going to be Aaron Sherinian. He's going to be Willie. Alas for little Aaron. We shan't see Aaron anymore.
He didn't tell us if the general authorities brought him out of his timeout, though it seems like it. It seems like maybe we're going to see, like I said earlier, we're going to see a lot more of Aaron Sherinian. This should be good. Cue up the tape. Make sure you're recording.
Do you want to hear another Little Willie? Hear one, not see one, Bill.
As a William, it makes me nervous. Yes.
You're going to hear the Little Willie. This is another one for my dad. Little Willie in the best of sashes. Now that would be the best of clothes, like I'm dressed up in tonight, or you. Little Willie in the best of sashes fell in the fire and was burned to ashes. Now the room is cold and chilly, for no one likes to poke up Willie.
Well, there you go. I'll let you take it away, RFM. That was a great show.
Okay, and I got some more for the future. So come back and hear some more Little Willie jokes on Mormonism After Dark. Everybody have a great weekend. Look forward to seeing you. By the way, there may not be a Radio Free Mormon tomorrow night. Actually, there probably isn't going to be. I tried to indicate that earlier on at the outset of the show about how I've been feeling, but I have been studying. I've been reading. I read Hebrews today, and I mean what's denominated the letter, though it's probably a sermon, to the Hebrews in the New Testament. Also, Alma chapter 12 and 13, Ether chapter 12, and also the paper. I think it's 60 plus pages of that paper that David W. Wright wrote in 1993. It was published in 1993 by Dan Vogel, or I know it was Dan Vogel, and it may have been one with Brett Metcalf, or that may have been a different one. They both did anthologies anyway. Regardless, that's what led to his excommunication. Okay, so I want to do a good job on that. I'm pursuing a real long shot of maybe getting David P. Wright on the show, trying to leverage my relationship with Brett Metcalf to leverage his relationship with David W. Wright. We'll see how it goes. Okay, but anyway. This Monday, after the weekend, for sure, we're going to be here for Mormon Newscast. And boy, we got more news than we can shake a stick at. We'll see you there. And if not there, next Wednesday, we should have Lauren Matthias on Mormonism Live. That's Wednesday at 6 o'clock Mountain Time. And once again, next Friday for another episode. We hope we see you there of Mormonism After Dark. Thank you for joining us tonight and have a great weekend, everybody.
Good night.